Tampa Bay is like no place else.
Wait, you can't recycle the bag? You have to throw it away.
Proper recycling keeps it that way for everyone. Bags tangle in machinery and can bring sorting efforts to a halt.
No bags.
Trash the bags and keep our recycling program moving forward.
No, Mom, look, no plastic bags.
Do your part to keep our recycling bag-free. Trash the tanglers or return them to participating retailers. For more information, visit tampabayrecycles.org.
Good morning and welcome to the Circuit 13 Juvenile Justice Advisory Board. It is Friday, February 21st, 2025 at 10:02 a.m. We would like to start with our call to order with Madam Secretary doing membership roll call, please.
Absolutely. Travis Coy.
I'm Alana McClintock on behalf of Travis Boyd.
Thank you. Anita Mobley.
Present.
Gina Justice.
Judy Royston for Gina Justice.
Thank you. Beth Pasick.
Here.
Captain Michael Kutner.
Present.
Thank you. Lieutenant Robin Polk.
Present.
Commissioner Cameron Cepeda.
Present.
Chrissy Dorian.
Present.
Conchita Canty-Jones.
Present.
Pastor Alfred Johnson is excused. Reverend Dr. Glenn Dames, Jr.
Present.
Thank you. Clara Reynolds, present. Marquise Thomas.
Present.
Thank you. Sarah Griming. Thank you. Rob Parkinson.
Here.
Kimberly Williams. Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And I believe we also have an approved, a member of the representative as a youth, and her name is Ms. Dozala. I don't know if she's present today. Okay, we'll note that. If you all would stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Previously, the agenda was sent out, and I move for adoption of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Agenda approved. The review and approval of our minutes that were previously sent out and are here today as well, for anybody that has not had an opportunity to review. Motion to approve the minutes.
Move approval.
I second.
Minutes are hereby approved. Moving on to our standing business, a discussion of unfinished business. I do not know that we have any unfinished business that we need to address at this particular time. Vice Chair?
No, I believe all the unfinished business has been put in the standing business, so we can
Thank you,
address
sir.
it at that time.
Thank you, sir. We will move on to our member updates. On behalf of the Department of Juvenile Justice for Probation, I will share with all our current census for youth served in Hillsborough County. Currently, we have 224 youth that are on forms of probation, post-commitment, conditional release supervision. In addition, we have 42 youth that are on supervised release status. That is a form of home detention in lieu of secure detention. We have 31 youth that are on electronic monitoring. That's a combination of youth that are ordered to electronic monitoring as a condition of their probation and/or youth that are ordered as a term while they are on supervised release status. And lastly, on behalf of detention services who are not able to be present today, their current census for secure detention is 46 youth, 7 of which are youth that are from out of county that are temporarily placed at the Hillsborough Regional Juvenile Detention Center. I would also like to share with the team that anybody that may not be have received notice that Secretary Hall will be leading a groundbreaking ceremony for the site at the new Hillsborough Regional Juvenile Detention Center that will be held on Tuesday, February 25th at 11 a.m. The site is at 9504 East Columbus Drive, Tampa, Florida, 33619. That is also the site of our True Court residential facilities as well. He has, the Secretary's office has sent out special invites to our judicial stakeholders and our dignitaries within Hillsborough County. Anybody that would like to attend, they're welcome to attend. I will say that parking is a little bit limited there, so take that into consideration if you would. Does anybody have any questions for me regarding juvenile justice at this particular point? Thank you. So we will move on to updates from prevention. I do not see representative from our prevention branch present today, so I cannot provide updates on behalf of that branch, unfortunately. I will work to attempt to have prevention representatives at our next and future CAB meetings. And now for an update from our delinquency citation.
Good morning, everybody. For the month of January 2025, we processed 39 civil pre-arrest delinquency citations. In the 39 total for the month of January, 23 in the community and 16 in the schools. Battery DV was the highest referral with 11, followed by petty theft with 8. And in January of '24, we processed 39 referrals, 33 in the community and 6 referrals in the schools. And that's it for updates, unless someone has some questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move forward with updates from Hillsborough County Children's Services.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to give you a census update. We currently have 11 youth in our care. 5 of them are truancy court-ordered youth, 5 of them are community youth, and 1 of them is domestic violence pre-citation. For anyone who might have connections, we are currently seeking to fill a vacancy in our nursing position. So you can find that on Hillsborough County job postings. So if you know anyone qualified that would like to work with us, send them our way. And I have no further updates unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you. And lastly, we will open it up to our board membership for any general member updates. Okay, we will move forward through our subcommittee selection and membership, our data-driven decision-making, delinquency citation issuance. We have a PowerPoint today that we would like to present as we proceed through the conversation of this particular subcommittee. Yes.
Conchita, could you use your microphone? Right back.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I just had a question, just for a point of clarity. With the delinquency citations, how is that determined? Is it an arrest, or are the youth that have actually been arrested, or is it's just a citation, they didn't actually get locked up in a facility? I was just curious of how do they count those numbers?
For the issuance, that is youth that are not processed, fingerprinted, and booked. So they are first-time misdemeanor offenses. They receive the civil citation, which goes to the administrative office of the courts with Director Royston's office, the Juvenile Arrest Avoidance Program. So these are youth that are not formally processed into the system, thus not creating a formal juvenile justice arrest history.
Thank you.
And Conchita, just to clarify, there's a state statute that puts out a list of the types of charges that are eligible for civil citation, and then each community is allowed to further delineate which charges are appropriate for diversion, and that's done through a collaborative MOU.
Okay, because that was my question, like who determines if it's a citation or a regular arrest? Is that within that policy that you was telling me about?
It is within
Okay.
the MOU, and then there is discretion on the part of the officer that's responding to based on circumstances on the ground.
Okay, thank you.
here.
That's page 2. There you go.
There's our page 1. So that is our pre-arrest delinquency citation, utilization rates, and disposition outcomes from December 2023 through November 2024. And this data source is the DJJ pre-arrest delinquency citation dashboard. It focuses on our utilization rates for Circuit 13, as previously mentioned, December 2023 through November 2024. And case dispositions, case outcomes for any delinquency citation eligible youth arrested during the same period. All statewide data referenced in this presentation does not include out-of-state cases youth. As you can see from this slide, Circuit 13 had 797 pre-arrest delinquency citation eligible youth between December 2023 and November 2024. 62% received a citation. The state average during the same period of time was 62%. From December 2023 through November 2024, in Circuit 13, there were a total of 299 youth arrested for eligible misdemeanors instead of being offered the opportunity for a pre-arrest delinquency citation. The top 5 reasons youth were arrested in lieu of citation were domestic violence, reason not available or provided, not identified as CC eligible, other, and then multiple misdemeanors. Circuit 13 issued citations to 51% of domestic violence-related eligible youth. By comparison, the statewide average was 35%. For domestic violence offenses, 114 eligible youth were arrested in lieu of a citation. Of those 114, 74 were either no filed, no pros, not guilty, or are still pending a disposition. 40 cases received a diversion. No arrest resulted in probation services. This screen breaks down a comparison of school-related versus community-based offenses for Circuit 13 during the period. Overall, Circuit 13 issues citations for both categories at about the state average, above the state average. The community-based offenses, the state average is 50%, slightly lower than the Circuit 13's 53% rate. For community-based offenses, 278 eligible youth were arrested in lieu of being issued a citation. 104 cases are either still pending or received a non-file, no pros, or not guilty disposition. 174 received diversion services. No youth received probation after being arrested for a pre-arrest delinquency citation eligible offense. For school-related offenses, only 21 youth were arrested in lieu of being issued a citation. All received diversion services. And that concludes the presentation. So we can open it up at this particular time for questions, comments, or discussion. Indeed, it does. Indeed, it does. Thank you.
Is that a Scrivener's error, or did the Circuit 12 data get put into our presentation?
We have a representative from the department that's here today as far as providing the data integrity on that. Would you say that's a Scrivener's error, or?
Yeah, it should be Circuit 13.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for that correction.
Chief Hammersley, I just have a question about some of the data that's
Yes.
being provided. And when we talk about community youth, is it possible to get zip codes in relationship to these offenses?
Yes, it is. That is something that we can work forward. So
And-
we're requesting zip codes in relation to the offenses. Yes, sir. Next.
Yes, what are some
Yes.
of the, and maybe I can find it, but, or tell me where I can look, what are some of the diversion programs that are offered to the youth?
In Hillsborough County, we have a juvenile arbitration program. It's one of those. We also have the juvenile delinquency, I'm sorry, it just slipped my mind. Right. Yes, juvenile delinquency alternatives program is another resource that we have as far as diversion opportunities. Likewise, the civil citation, we know, the juvenile arrest avoidance program. The other opportunities for diversion may go through the court system, and that would be via a Walker plan, which is a non-adjudication, a non-withhold for diversion
Okay,
opportunities.
so I'm clear, because in my mind, when you said, that, I also was thinking of, are the youth and the families connected to the other, like, community resources and those things? I'm thinking in the sense of workforce, how do we
So
fall right then?
that's a good point, and Director Royston could probably comment a little bit further than I can. But when youth are admitted to the program or are enrolled in the civil citation program, they get a comprehensive assessment and screening by court administration. And that's typically done by folks with master's degrees and extensive experience in assessment and screening. Based on the screening results, they're referred to various services that are dependent upon the individual needs of the youth. So let's say a youth has some substance abuse issues, that youth might be referred to substance abuse services as part of that plan. That make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and I Sheeta, we go out, I mean, we try to keep updated with all the resources in the community. We use many of the same resources that all of our stakeholders use. We try to make sure that each youth that comes into our office, it's individualized. We take into account transportation issues, any barriers to the family. We really want to make the youth that come our way be successful. We look at, and like Mr. Parkinson was saying, we do a comprehensive assessment. It's an evidence-based tool. We then come up with treatment plans and sanctions along with contacting the victim. So we want to make sure the victim is included, if there's any restitution, the victim statement. Our program is meant to be short-term. It could be as short as 5 weeks, and some of the kids that come our way just do foolish things. But we also want to make sure that the kids aren't reoffending. I want to say that our civil citation program in Hillsborough County has a 2% recidivism rate. We also do diversion. So if a youth doesn't get a civil citation and goes through the state attorney's office, they can send them our way to keep the family out of court. So the whole idea is to not tie up the court system with extra court hearings, but we could do the same thing with our case managers and address treatment and accountability.
So a further question is there any accountability when it's resources connected to the community? Is it mandatory?
So it's a voluntary program. The parent and youth come in and we go over the charges. In order to be in our program, you have to admit involvement. So some parents come in and say, my child's not guilty. Some parents come in and say, I'm not doing your program. Or, there's many reasons why they might not take our program. We try to work through that. But if they do come in, then, we refer out to resources in the community. We use Derek Brooks. We use community service hours. We use Cove, DACO, Cove and Phoenix. You know, we refer to all our mental health agencies. We try to use Success for Kids and Families. If there's mental health needs, we really want to concentrate on that. So we keep the kids till either they fail to comply and it goes back to the state attorney's office, and then they determine whether to file a petition or not, or if they're successful.
Thank you.
Okay?
Chief Hammersley, just a few comments. So for the entire year period, it looks like we're at 62%. With the passage of the juvenile justice legislation in FY24, calendar year 24, there's a provision that they want communities to get up to that 70% threshold kind of across the board. Now, knowing that we were at 62%, are we ending up on a list or something that's going to certain stakeholders in Tallahassee? And what will be the result of that representation on the list?
And that's a good question. So currently, the department is updating our public website for delinquency citation issuances, where they're keeping the data for each circuit, and they are aligning that with circuits that are high performing, i.e. 100%, 90%. Yes, we're trying to achieve that bar, but it will show where we are in comparison and rating it as a star standard, gold star, your top of the heap, more or less, and then naturally the silver, the bronze star, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll give us a threshold as chief probation officers in each circuit to try to attain that higher threshold. We're working on, the department's working on added measures of informational cards and discussions with our law enforcement entities, because it is, again, it's a learning base when there's new deputies, new police officers joining the force, and just knowing that these youth can be afforded that opportunity for the first-time misdemeanors. So that is what we have in place, and we also have it as far as each circuit, their priorities, what they want their cabs to address. And that is one of the reasons that we really wanted to put this on our cab as a subcommittee, to where we can work towards increasing the utilization for our circuit.
I think it's great to have this data so we can make data-informed decisions. I think one of the other telling things for me is that for the youth that didn't receive civil citation, having the data on what was the outcome of those cases, and you know, it's pretty telling. 34% were null prost or were found not guilty. 65% received diversion services. So I think that's indicative of the work that the state attorney's office is doing to further evaluate these cases and then holding the youth accountable through services on the back end. That's very impressive. But the other main takeaway is that these kids are not ending up on probation services.
Correct. And one of the major purposes of this delinquency citation is to afford the youth the opportunity of not creating a formal face sheet with the department.
And it's great that our state attorney's office is doing that additional research and
Absolutely.
holding youth accountable. But on the downside, it also means those kids are showing up with an arrest record.
Yes.
So, which is what we're trying to avoid to begin with.
Yes.
Madam Chair, Antina Mobley from the Public Defender's Office. I do have a question with respect to the youth that were arrested that have the eligible misdemeanors. Do we have any idea of what parameters the officers have when they use their discretion? Is there a set criteria that they use when they're using this discretion to arrest or not arrest? Do we know anything about that?
Well, actually, I would defer that question and answer to our Sheriff's Department representative and our Tampa Police Department representative.
Yeah, a lot of times those are isolated incidents where officers are using their discretion. And I'll give an example, like something that happens on a school campus where the kid, maybe we started off with a jab and told them to leave. They come back on campus and cause a fight again. It's like in the immediate, we have to fix that and make it safe. So it's scenarios like that. We do have a list of criteria that we use, and But ultimately, the officer does have discretion. We still have to keep the peace at the end of the day. So the citation is our first option usually, but it doesn't always work out that way, so.
And I'd also like to point out that Director Royston has been doing work through her committee to kind of get the community to do a better job at clearly articulating why youth were not offered civil citation. And I mean, it's an ongoing challenge because we always have people retiring, new people coming up, people transferring, so making sure that, you know, they're informed on what the MOU says. And she's done some work on that and created some efficiencies within the various data systems. Can you talk a little bit about that, Director Royston?
I can. So first I want to say, like Mr. Parkinson said, we've had some turnover with retirements and everything else. So we do have long-standing members. Captain Kootner's been wonderful to work with, and Lieutenant Polk. So, you know, because there's a learning curve whenever you come on how civil citations are issued. But Captain Kootner was instrumental in changing the criminal report affidavit. So, and actually, I would like him to speak on it because he's the one that did all the work.
Yeah, so part of the criminal report affidavit is trying to capture those incidences that the lieutenant mentioned, that they have the discretion, and unfortunately an arrest is the option at that point. So what we've tried to do between the lieutenant, myself, and Ms. Royston is try to actually make sure that the deputies and officers actually put in the report on the reason for that and why a citation was not issued. I think that we're moving in the right direction. There's been a lot of roll call presentations that are being given. Within the sheriff's office, our command staff is on board on trying to continue to push that needle towards the higher percentage of utilization of the first-time offenders into the delinquency citation.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you wanted me to expound on, so we've had meetings, and I've met mostly with Captain Kootner, with Rob, and Lieutenant Polk, because we didn't want to repeat what we've already done with the subcommittee and just educate our new members on how things work. So originally, when we looked at this, our utilization numbers were lower than Polk and Pinellas County. They allow their civil citations to go through the Juvenile Assessment Center, and there's a process to back out the fingerprints so that the youth does not show up with a record. We met with Linda Cook with the Sheriff's Office, with the Pinellas County Sheriff. We've looked at how the Pinellas County JAC operated, but then back in, I'm trying to think when we had our meeting, I have it written down here, we went over to the Hillsborough JAC. And Director Bittridge was there, along with the allied staff, just to talk about, is this feasible in the Hillsborough County Juvenile Assessment Center? Because presently, our civil citation youth are not allowed to come into the JAC. So it's something that the work group is continuing to look at. I think it would reduce the number of youth that get to battery domestic violence. Many times law enforcement is out in the community and a youth is having a battery domestic violence situation and someone needs to either go to shelter, law enforcement needs to be educated on, you know, calling the shelter, them taking the youth, or is it too far, or is there an alternate relative, instead of initiating an arrest. I mean, it's a tough situation to be in with battery domestic violence, but those youth, we worked on this through the years, and those youth are now eligible, and we're always looking at improving it. I mean, the shelter does a great job of taking those kids, and then they're in there for up to 14 days, and they get services. We just want to prevent these kids from getting further batteries. But the ones that do come through the JAC are then arrested, and they could be sent to secure if there's no alternate placement. We also had another meeting in January with Lieutenant Polk and Captain Kootner regarding the quarterly and monthly reports that are put out. You know, like Captain Kootner said, you have to issue a reason for not issuing a civil citation. Through those meetings, they've had education and training with their staff. So my hope is, with the work that we've done so far, our numbers will go up. The committee's continuously looking at this. You know, I think the biggest is, and like this past month, battery domestic violence is our highest referral usually for not getting a civil citation. So there's more work to be done. I want to continue looking at the Hillsborough Jack, maybe being able to accept civil citations. I think that would increase our utilization and it would be an easy fix, but I am just the chair of the committee.
So just to dovetail on Director Royston's comments, I think there's always efficiencies to be had in the field, but eventually we're going to get to a point where law enforcement just needs to do what law enforcement needs to do to secure a safe environment in the community. I do think, given everything that this group has looked at and Director Royston's subcommittee, that are a fairly easy win. And there are no silver bullets, but pretty close to silver bullet to create efficiencies is the polk model, wherein kids are offered civil citation at the jack, and then the records are backed out so it doesn't show up as an arrest. I mean, to me, that's a win-win. Getting there, I think, is the challenge, but I think folks are largely interested in it. Again, looking at the data that Chief Hammersley provided, we know what the outcomes of those youth are. So we might as well give them that bite at the apple at the jack. Now, are there things that need to be worked out? Absolutely, but it's a fairly easy win. And the numbers, I would say, Director Royston, probably up to 10% right off the bat, if we could do that, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
Roughly 10 to 15%?
And Rob, if I might add, so Captain Kootner's team has been so intentional about looking at what's been going on specifically with the domestic violence in the last few months. And we've gone through specific incidents and looking at what are officers writing, how are they classifying that, and then what can we do differently. And I think that part of the thing that we have to remember is it's still voluntary. Parents have to buy in to these programs. So most of the time what's happening is they're going to the jack and the next morning they're in court with us and then they're coming to us as a domestic violence youth with a charge now. And parents don't often understand that. You know, it's a short window of time, it's a crisis situation. And so how do we engage? And I think some of that kind of support comes from going through the process of the jack. Parents feel a little bit different with that option than they do being in the moment. There's a little bit of time to just have some reprieve. But, you know, understanding the process for all of these new officers is critical and keeping that education in front of them. And it's as simple as charging someone with battery and not charging them with domestic battery. What does that look like? Or understanding in their system, they thought a kid didn't qualify, so they didn't necessarily offer. And it's just an education barrier that we're constantly staying educating everyone, and I will, you know, give the Sheriff's Office so much credit. They are really intentionally doing deep dives to see how we can continue to positively impact those kids not coming through with charges.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I want to pair it, Rob. These numbers are certainly, I think they're looking looking pretty good, considering 63% received diversion services and not arrests. The other thing that I think was impressive to me is the fact that we only had one gun arrest, misdemeanor weapon firearm offense. And I'm glad to see those numbers are not climbing up and going down, because I think that's extremely important. My other question was, Commissioner, is Safe and Sound one of those organizations or resources that you're using for diversion?
So, Safe and Sound, those kids that are in Safe and Sound. Sorry, okay. So with our civil citation youth and our diversion youth, we're very careful not to mix them with another population.
Okay.
Mr. Barton does a fantastic job with the children that go to Safe and Sound, but they're usually probation youth. They're usually firearm charges. We don't want to mix those two populations. So we do
So
not,
your intention to keep those separate, right?
you got it, yes.
And Pastor James, just to clarify, we're only talking about misdemeanors here, and a lot of the charges that you're probably thinking are
Well,
felonies.
I get that.
and
I'm very well aware these are misdemeanors. I'm just simply saying that even on the misdemeanor side with firearms, that's still, one is still a better number than.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I wish we had the same success on the felony side at this
Correct.
juncture, but I just want to be clear.
And I did want to be clear that as of our new House Bill Florida statute, misdemeanor firearm offenses are no longer eligible for delinquency citation.
Madam Chair, and forgive me if I don't know all the law and the protocol, I'm interested to knowing what are some of the reasons that they did not give the citation, and are you in the position that when you all are looking at the data to say, oh, can you backtrack? Can you say, okay, we should have given that child a citation, let's give them the opportunity after they have been arrested, and will that arrest no longer be there?
So in regards to reviewing the affidavits and the opportunities missed, we typically try to get involved with the supervisors and deputies to make sure that they're following the MOU. Unfortunately, once an opportunity is missed, and a lot of times there are circumstances surrounding the incident that would dictate that discretion to make the arrest. It's just not documented properly. There are certain instances, and especially in regards to the domestic violence battery cases that's already been mentioned, that we're trying to improve that option, to try to get our deputies to focus on the respite, offering opportunities for them to go to other areas if they need to be removed from the household.
So, again, one of the benefits of the Polk County method and model is that it gives that time, that breathing period from the incident to where they're at the jack. They can de-escalate, their family can de-escalate, wiser minds can prevail. It also gives folks the opportunity to contact, for instance, in domestic violence, contact children's services. Do you have a bed for this youth? And get the youth into that bed. So it creates distance. We've had some incidents in which there were multiple delinquent events occurring on the same property in the same circumstance. And even though many of those charges would be eligible, for public safety's sake, those youth needed to be removed from the situation. If they have issued a citation, it would have been right to the same property in the same circumstance. So those types of situations merit removal from the physical property.
One last question, if possible. Director, how many of those families, what percentage, I know it may be a raw number, but how many of those families choose not to accept services, roughly?
I don't want to give you a percentage, but there are a lot of times where the parent will say to us, we didn't know it was going to come to you. We just wanted law enforcement to come out and stop the situation. We just wanted my child to learn a lesson. So I'm not quite sure what the percentage is, but we do get them that they say, we don't want your program, we don't want this, it was a one-time incident. So, but we also work with them to try to say, well, if you do our program, your child will get services. We refer out, so it doesn't escalate where we're here a second time.
Thank you.
Pastor James, I think you bring up a good point, especially given your involvement and influence within the faith-based community. We've had situations in the past, specifically when we expanded the civil citation program to the program it is today, many years ago, 12, 15 years ago, the program was really just focused on retail theft. And many people in the community wanted to expand it to serve a larger target population to benefit the youth. And there was some resistance at first, but we did some evaluation, brought in some subject matter experts, did the math on it, and realized that we wanted to expand it. The commissioner at the time that was appointed to this group held a series of town halls in the community, 5, if I recall, each part of the county, to get parents to understand the value of civil citation. And I can say that it was they were very poorly attended. And when we asked some of the parents, they thought their kids would never be involved in the juvenile justice system, or a lot of the parents they were struggling to make ends meet. They had 2 jobs. They didn't have transportation. So helping get the message out there to the community in general that first of all, we don't want your kids to be in the juvenile justice system, but if they are on the precipice, this is what civil citation can do, kind of educate in the community. Is that something you think the faith-based community can help with?
I think it is. I think it's something that most of the people in the community would definitely welcome. And I do agree that a lot of people don't know about it. And I think if they did know about it, I think more people would be apt to try to take advantage of it. Who wants a child in the system? And what I find out with parents is sometimes because of parents' lack of knowledge, they're deemed to not care. And I think that could not be further from the truth. Parents care about their children. They just don't always have the knowledge and resources to seek out information to help their children properly. And so if they know about these civil citations, of course, I think they'll be happy to take advantage of them.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi, good morning. I'm Markesh. So I have a 2-part concern. You mentioned the breathing period. How long is that breathing period?
Well, I was referencing the Polk County model.
Yes.
In which they allow youth that go to the JAC to kind of get a second bite at the apple and be reevaluated for civil citation. That depends on where the youth came from. So for instance, we've got over 1,000 square miles in Hillsborough County. If a kid's transported from Ruskin or Waimama, it might be an hour and a half drive to get to the JAC.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they get to the JAC, they go through a screening process. JAC has to process every kid within 5 hours, is it?
6.
6 hours, thank you. So sometimes it's just, a half hour where cooler heads can prevail, but just the transportation from point A to point B. And the other thing is I trust Lieutenant Polk and Captain Kutner implicitly, but when these situations arise in the community, sometimes it's the difference between somebody there in a uniform and a gun and somebody there in polos and slacks like Director Bitrich or Director Royston. And it's just cognitively reframing the situation. People are more apt to accept and receive services. Does that make sense?
Yes. The second part of my concern is kind of switching gears, but I'm currently a high school teacher. So right now we're dealing with this problem where we have minors distributing like explicit content or pornographic images. So we're seeking like resources or the appropriate individuals to appropriately help us with that issue that we're dealing with in the high school right now.
So if I can address that, we handle sexting, which is a lot of our citations. With the sexting statute, if you're caught with material on your phone or if you receive it on your phone, you can be referred for a civil citation. So the statute says that if you have a sexting violation, the parent can choose. The youth can do either 8 hours community service work, pay a $65 fee, or do a cyber safety presentation, which our case managers do. So if it's the first sexting, it comes to my office, and we get with the parent and discuss what they want to do in that case. And, if it's a cyber safety presentation, once the youth participates, then the charge is closed. But I got probably 10 this past week, which we've never had that many. And the age for sexting is usually 12 years old. That seems to be the age that most of the kids come in with sexting violations.
Judy, if you could, can you just share what statute your program falls under? I think it might help if we saw that, if people could access the list that we're talking about.
On the list
For qualifying civil citation offenses.
So the civil citation offense is 985.12.
Thank you. And then just to comment on what Rob was saying, we see often kids that come in with civil citations, their parents are following law enforcement to our program because they just need that break. And so to his point, they're making the trip to us, screening with us, going through the process, and then get there and they've had some time to just calm down, and it's enough. And so just adding that component, I think, would be a great asset to families.
And Markesh, I believe you work at a fairly small school, so there's not a ton of students. I know there's some pamphlets available on that issue, and also the county's Anti-Bullying Advisory Committee has a series of materials, handout materials, that includes internet safety and the dangers of sexting and all that sort of thing. So we could probably arrange to get some of that to you, enough for your school at least, and then you could probably replicate it and keep them in stock. A lot of these kids don't realize it's wrong and now illegal. There's a statute. So helping inform and educate them I think, will help as well.
And Rob, Markesh, how you doing? I'm Patrick Menzer from Children's Services. If we could get together after this, because I think we'd have the opportunity to maybe have some therapists run groups and things of that nature, just figuring out what school you're at and making things happen, okay?
And our Children's Services Department plays a very vital role in our Anti-Bullying Advisory Committee, and they actually worked with a local prevention agency to develop a card game that parents can play with their kids that touches on these issues. So, and they have a therapeutic response, and they can do groups to that. If it's reached that level at your school, they can provide that support. And we have extra copies of that card game that we can provide to you too.
Very robust conversation. I do want to get clarification on the current membership for the data-driven decision-making subcommittee. So the chair is Judy Royston, and I need to confirm the rest of the members that were previously identified, and if anybody here today would also like to join in that subcommittee that's not currently participating in a subcommittee.
So I think Captain Kuttner is one, Lieutenant Polk is one, I'm another. Is that it, Chief Royston?
No, Sarah.
Oh, sorry, Sarah.
Services. I don't know if Carrie knows it, but we volunteered her the last meeting. Carrie Bittrich from the Jack. The Temple Terrace. Help me out, Rob. On,
Corporal Mihalopoulos? No.
yeah, yes.
Mahapalovs.
And then we have out in Plant City, it's switched. Justin Lee. I think it's Corporal Justin Lee.
Yes,
For
yes.
Plant City.
Madam Chair, I'd be willing to serve on that committee if possible.
Yes, of course, accepted.
Madam Chair, is this the committee that you mentioned to me via email?
That would be the next one.
Okay, thank you.
But you can join it, whichever committee you'd like to join. Okay. I will. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, let's move to our next subcommittee, which is student achievement. This one has not really been defined at this particular point because we needed to have our membership solidified and our chair solidified. So previous conversations were?
Absolutely. Historically, this group and its predecessor worked on better outcomes for youth coming out of the back end of the juvenile justice system, or maybe still had a pending case. So a lot of that relied on Ms. Dorian's work to make sure that kids remain engaged in their education, and then also post referrals to junior college, to college, et cetera. So Ms. Dorian has agreed to chair that committee. She did reserve the right to bring in some data people as needed to stratify the data that she's working on. I believe Ms. Canty Jones also agreed to serve on that committee. Her connections with the vocational world will be instrumental to the success of that committee. So we've got two core folks there. And Ms. Dorian, would you like to comment on who else you might need?
Yes, I have invited Melissa Russo, who's boots on the ground. She works with district threat management team, juvenile mental health court students, probation students, and diversion students very closely. Also Ross Anderson, who's also boots on the ground, moving students towards graduation with those students that are more in the traditional schools. And he's able to pull overall data that we might need, and they have both agreed to be on the committee as well.
And I believe Assistant Chief Probation Officer Egg, you are also part of that committee, correct?
I believe I was part of the civil citation, but I can also be a part of this one as well.
So I'm not sure the way she said that, it could have been a question or a direction.
No, I serve as ex-fac. So
Assistant
I'm
Chief Egg, I am so
participating.
sorry I left you off. Yes.
And my understanding is this is more of a problem-solving committee because all of these systems are already in place.
Yes.
And just kind of being able to have the group understand how all the systems are operating and bring things to our attention.
That is one of the focus, and the other focus points is to increase our school enrollment within our county, because also we're held to statewide averages that's similar to delinquency citation issuances. So, and our average right now for our state, we are unfortunately at the lowest.
I want to let you know that big props. So our department is the Juvenile Justice Transition Department called JJTD. Okay, it sounds huge. It's myself and Melissa Russo, but it sounds really big. We work with all the probation officers in Circuit 13, and it's like one big family. There's not a day that goes by that we don't get 20 to 25 calls in that day from a probation officer saying, hey, the student is not in school, what can we do? Exactly. It's a fabulous relationship, and it's a well-oiled machine, and we're trying to work through every barrier that these students are having to getting in school.
And I will say that within the last, what would you say, 30 days, that we've seen
Yes.
the percentage increase of youth that are actively enrolled in school. So we see the bar climbing higher. It's just being consistent on that as far as the department and youth that are on supervision, that we're trying to attain that goal.
I think one of the other concerns is there was some statutory changes last year. I'm thinking of the Florida Scholars Academy. I hope I
Correct.
said that right.
Yes.
And whenever we create something new like that, we need to make sure that as it's created, that it's able to plug back into the local systems in an appropriate and hopefully seamless manner. So.
Last topic here is post-secondary options. We have a school counselor that's specifically dedicated to students that we work with who have earned a diploma. And she meets with the families and goes over all the options and financial aid information. That's working very, very well as well.
And Chrissy, I'd like to be a part of that committee, and just as Rob was mentioning, we have some statute changes that we're trying to push through right now with 984, and being heavily involved, not just in truancy court, but on kids coming into prevention programs that are identifying as trending with truancy issues. So we're being asked by the department to send up a lot more reports from schools and work with the court system on when those kids and how those kids are getting processed through truancy court. So I'd like to be a part of that.
Noted, Sarah.
And we're following those youth up to, it's 90 days post-discharge. And so I think the secretary's really starting to put an emphasis on prevention programs and recognizing when truancy begins and how we can be impactful in that area.
And Ms. Thomas, you wanted to be a member?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Noted. Okay, so as we move forward, I'm going to stop right there on the Julia Holt Service Excellence Award, because as far as Robert's Rule of Order, our subcommittees are subject to public notice and public agenda for any meetings that transpire. So we currently, the department has a template that we do use, which gives the information for the date, time, location, and the agenda, that once it's completed, it's put on our department website, and likewise, I will send it out on blind copy mass email distribution. So at this point, I believe we're going to have to come up with subcommittees, a cadence of meetings, and what that may look like. If it's going to be in person, it's open to the public. Or is it going to be a hybrid, public, in-person, and Teams? Or is it just going to be virtual? So those are some items to consider moving forward. And also perhaps if the meetings are back-to-back, same date, just, 1 hour and then a second hour, just for the members that can schedule their availability at that time. The meetings should, subcommittees should occur prior to the next Circuit Advisory Board, to where we have that information at least 2 weeks before, to where we can provide that for our official CAB meeting, such as today. Vice Chair?
And I don't want that to scare anyone. This is us
easy.
just keeping on the good side of sunshine law and not going to sunshine law jail. But it's not overly onerous. It just means sending an email to Chief Hammersley and saying, our committee is going to meet on such and such day in person, via Zoom, via Teams, so that she can put it on the state's website and it's advertised. And then, we don't typically have a lot of external interest in subcommittees. Most of the external interest tends to be in the full committee, folks that want to just know what's going on with the juvenile justice system. So I don't want that to scare anyone. If there are folks that need, most of us have resources, most of us have access to Teams or Zoom at this point, post-pandemic. But if there are folks that need resources, need a place to meet, I'm very willing to offer up a room at County Center. Again, these committees are not large, so if the committee wants to park in the county parking garage across the street, I can also validate their parking for participation in the committee. So again, I don't want to scare the chairs or vice chairs of these subcommittees. It's not overly onerous. It's just letting Chief know so she can put it on the website.
And I will send out to each of the chairs for the subcommittees, so you have it, the draft public notice and the draft agenda, just to where you have that, to where then I can receive that when the time comes and formalize it and submit it to the department website.
Can we also have the names and the emails of the people on our committee?
Yes, of
Thank you,
course.
thank you.
And the subject of the subcommittees, it doesn't have to be a book. It just requires a basic summary.
Overview.
Yes, we're meeting to talk about increased utilization of civil citation in Circuit 13. There you go, that's the agenda.
Thank you. Any questions so far? Okay, we're going to move on next to the the Julia M. Holt Service Excellent Award, and you're going to have to help me with that, Vice Chair. I believe that we had created a subcommittee.
We did create a subcommittee about 7 years ago. It was created to recognize individuals in the field of juvenile justice. Initially, it was one award, then it was bifurcated into a nonprofit and a governmental agency representative who've gone above and beyond to improve our juvenile justice system. We've had some really awesome folks recognized over the years, people in the nonprofit sector. We've had people doing human trafficking work, just really a lot of quality people that were recognized for their work. Typically in the November full council meeting, we recognize that individual. There's a very nice plaque that goes along with it, as well as a write-up. Ms. Holt has historically delivered that award directly herself, who's the award is named after. And again, those of you that don't know, Julianne Holt is our recently retired public defender who served 34-ish years as our public defender, but is uniquely recognized as having a direct impact on so many things that address the juvenile justice system, from behavioral health, mental health, substance abuse, Of course, juvenile justice, child welfare. She's just done a tremendous job in her history of just improving those systems. So this group did build that award around her in her history. And again, we've done a great job of doing that. We didn't do one last year because of the transition in the CAB format. But at our last meeting, we recognized and realized that it's important to recognize the folks that are out there in the trenches doing the work. So we'll be doing that again this year. Ms. Canty Jones did volunteer to chair going forward. I think I chaired for 4 years, and then some folks from the faith-based community chaired before me. You know, basically it means putting out a form to all the nonprofits, all the government sector employees, where an individual can write up a summary of what the individual that they're referring for the award has done. Ms. Canty Jones will subsequently convene a committee to review them, and then subsequently make a recommendation for the award. And the materials have all been created. They just need to be updated with the dates and times, et cetera. And then we also typically have to remind folks of the deadline to make sure that, you know, many folks intend to submit nominations, but you know, their jobs are so busy, they don't always get around to it. So sometimes it requires this full full cab to, you know, kind of shake the trees and make sure that folks are recognized. But we've had some really great folks. We've had the detention center staff on a couple occasions. We've had folks from again, Created Women. We've had working in the human trafficking sector, just some really, really great folks that do some really awesome things. And it's also a good opportunity to let the public know what folks in the juvenile justice system arena are doing, because they often see the juvenile justice system in the lens of the Tampa Bay Times,
Right.
Or something bad that happens. And to see
Not
all
the
these
positive.
wonderful things that are happening, I think really helps inform folks that there is good
Oh,
with
yes.
the other things.
Absolutely. I do need to confirm the membership of that subcommittee.
So we're basically reconvening it and reconstituting it. So Ms. Canty Jones will chair it. So we'll,
Yes.
I'd probably just turn it over to you. You're going to need some people.
Yeah, we're going to need some people. And one of the things that I felt that was a barrier or a concern when we did get together and really looking at the tasks at hand was that we wanted more applications, I guess, more people to be nominated. And we felt like we needed to have a seamless system of getting it out in the public. That was some of the things that we thought that was a barrier. The people that were nominated was excellent, but as we were sitting at the table, we realized that, we personally know, people. So and I have those notes, I'm gonna look back at those notes so we can bring it up at the committee. But that, just as we come together and people want to join, but that was one of the things that we felt that was a barrier, that we didn't have enough, or it was not advertised enough. So I don't know right offhand, but we did come up with some recommendations. Do you recall that? I think that was one of the challenges.
Well, you being much more tech savvy than me, I think you had a lot of ideas to make it easier for people to submit versus the old pen and paper format that I utilize. So a lot of your recommendations revolved around that. You also suggested better partnerships with the faith-based community because we've historically had a number of pastors nominated, and the nominations were not as detailed as individuals that were in the government sector or the nonprofit sector, just because they weren't used to operation and defining all the things that they were doing. But when you peel back the layers of the onion, they were doing incredible work. It's just the nomination forms were not filled out to explain all of it. So you had some ideas on that as well.
Thank you.
So you need people.
Would anybody like to participate
Yes.
on this particular subcommittee? I think this is a
And
fun
I think,
one.
just for the record, I think we met maybe twice. So it wasn't a lot of meeting. We did a Zoom of really looking at the material, making sure, that the application, if we wanted to revise it, and then once everything was submitted, prior to the second meeting, I provided the team the nominations, the applications, so they'll be able to review it. And then we came together and made the decision then. So it was probably about 2 meetings. Not a lot of work at all.
I see you looking at me. I'm happy to help you again.
Thank you.
And I would volunteer to serve on your committee as well.
Thank you.
To me, the biggest challenge was, once you titrated down to the nominations that you got, they were all so good. And you really need some type A folks that are willing to make judicial assignments and say, okay, we're cutting off here, just because the quality of the nominations are always so high. I don't think I remember one nomination not being worthy of recognition and award. It's just picking from the nominations is a real challenge. So maybe if we had an attorney or a judge, that might be helpful. Or somebody with a taser to rein everyone in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you need an additional person, I'll volunteer.
You got the taser.
Well, there we go.
I will not use the taser.
So, Madam Chair, did I hear you say that you will provide the list to the chair of the names and the email addresses to the people that are chairing the subcommittees?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
The email addresses of the subcommittee members.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
You can add my name as well.
Awesome. We
That
have
brings
2
us to
tasers.
5 or 6. It's a good number.
Thank you, members. We will move on to our next order of business, which is new business. It's the area of introduction, innovation zones. I do not believe that we are here yet. As we progress through our subcommittees, that may be some information that we pull from that data, or suggestions that perhaps we could focus in on creation of an innovation zone. Vice Chair, do you have any commentary on that?
No, just historically speaking, for our new members and for the public that's here, recent legislation on juvenile justice allows for the creation of innovation zones to enhance a certain aspect of the juvenile justice system in the community. And I think innovation zones are kind of a misnomer. When you think innovation zones from like a public development perspective, you think about, Ybor City creating funding to enhance your consumer experience. When DJJ and the Secretary think innovation zones, it might be a geographic area, but it could also be a specific juvenile justice-related problem. So, for instance, gun violence might be an innovation zone. We might decide to create a special project to address that, or increased utilization of civil citation could be an innovation zone, or increased utilization of respite services might be an innovation zone. So that's the directive that we received through the legislation and through the Secretary on his last visit in January, I think it was. So I think at our last meeting, we kind of did some brainstorming. Some folks proposed some ideas. There was some spitballing going on.
Mentoring was
Another one.
Conversation.
A lot of good ideas, but I don't think we've gotten to the point where we've decided on one per se. I would say the next phase would be to take all those ideas that were thrown out there in January, and then as a group, pick from those ideas. Chief Hammersley, I know you also said there were some things being done in other circuits that we could maybe add to the list and look at as well.
Yes.
So everything that this group threw up there, and then some things in other circuits are working on, and then have a discussion here, and then maybe have a vote and pick.
Well, then I have my homework for me. I can discuss it with the other chiefs as far as what their CAB and where they are at on innovation zones. I may need to go statewide, since some of their CABs may be a little bit lower behind than where we are at our progression.
Yes, because we're the best.
Are there funding connected to the innovation zone? I
There-
know, we don't want to talk about money. I know. I'm going to ask about money.
There weren't in statute, but if you read between the lines, if a CAB decides to work on a specific innovation zone, I would wager that the secretary in the future would make sure that future funding for prevention services through Florida Network or the department help coalesce around those innovation zone plans that we're eventually going to create. Would you agree that's a good?
That's a good summation.
Plausible?
It's plausible. Previously, monies designated for an innovation zone in one operating circuit could not be used to fund an innovation zone in another operating circuit. But when you say monies, that's very clear to me that there's always potential.
Yes. And I'd also like to add that the secretary has been extremely successful in the last couple of years in getting legislation approved from legislative budget requests for his department. Initially, it was for staff salaries for detention and probation staff, and then more recently, securing the funds for our new secure detention facility over off of Columbus. So.
For the innovation zone?
No,
no committee.
that has not been
Okay.
created at this particular point. Item number B, our discussion of data and related questions. Well, previously we provided data on the pre-arrest delinquency citation issuances. Do we have any questions right now as far as any data that the CAB would like for the department to provide for the next Circuit Advisory Board, or what we've already mentioned that I will plan for?
Yeah, the only thing, I mean, this is very comprehensive, but as our Children's Services Department staff suggested, it would be helpful to have that broken down by zip code.
Yes.
So that we can maybe coalesce our resources on addressing the specific zip codes.
Yes, I have that. Okay. And with that being said, we have a presentation today. It is with, from the Children's Home Network. We have Denise Pilgrim that will be providing a presentation.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting us to come today. We wanted to tell you about our new respite program that we started in Hillsborough County we started around August. And so we wanted to come and share with you about what we've been doing. Right now, we have about 91 children in our program, and we're supposed to get around 160, but I think we might even do more than that. So I have with me today Jennifer Campbell. She's our clinical program manager, and this is Lacey Bradigan. She is the respite program manager, and we're going to tell you a little bit about our program. How do I work this?
He'll do it for you.
Oh. Where? What's the next slide on here?
Just the arrows.
Right here. Okay, just making sure. All right, thank you. So we're with Children's Home Network, and we have caregiver support services. And what is this service is? This is a respite and wraparound service with an overarching goal to reduce and eliminate the incidents of abuse and neglect. So we are a preventative program. We want to make it where we don't have involvement in DCF or anything like that, because we cannot take families that are involved in that. Like I said, we're in placement into foster, they cannot be in foster care in Hillsborough, Pasco, or Pinellas County. We place emphasis on family choice and voice. We work with the entire family. So if we're with the family, we start out with a caregiver that may be stressed because they're taking care of a child with autism, or they're taking care of a child with behavior issues, or having problems at school, or they may have some type of medical disability, Down syndrome, or something like that. So we work with the entire family. So whatever they need, we help them. But it reduces that stress on that caregiver when we go in and provide services for them, to take that needed break, just to get away for a little bit and relax just a minute. So it assists the family in reducing stress by increasing access to community supports and resources. We offer time-limited respite services in a variety of settings. So we can be in the community, we can be in the home, we can be at the park, we can meet the child at the bowling alley or the movie theater, wherever it would be that we could best help this family. We also have caregiver support groups, and they can stay in the support group for forever. The program is 3 to 6 months, but when we close out, they can still stay in that support group because we want them to have that extra support. And if they need to come back into the program, they can reapply, and we have space and they can come back in. We provide services to parents or caregivers caring full-time for a child from 0 to 13, living in Pasco or Hillsborough counties, and ages 0 to 14 living in Pinellas County. So our program, we have 3 programs with Children's Home Network. The child may have a physical disability, social and emotional challenges, developmental delays or disability, or acute situational stressor. They could have some medical things, but they need to be medically stable in order for us to be in there. We cannot give medication. Okay, and I am going to, okay, so what is respite? I'm going to let you tell all about respite.
This is your Yes, so respite care is a short break provided to the primary caregiver to give temporary relief from daily tasks for continuing to care recipient within the home and the community. So like Denise said, we're going out into the home sometimes once a week, sometimes twice, on average about up to 4 hours, just to kind of give that little break. We do have some families that were there 7+ hours a week. It just kind of goes on case-by-case basis. So all respite services are 7 days a week. We have providers who work 7 days a week, up through 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night. We do go ahead and go later into the hours with approval. We're offering flexibility to meet the individual needs of the family. Typically, duration, like Denise said, is kind of between 3 to 6 months, depending on the complexity of what the family's needs are.
All right, as Denise said, I am on the clinical side of things, and my team really focuses on those wraparound services. And like she said, we're really looking at the whole family unit and not just what one person needs in that family. So what happens is that we have a clinical team lead that goes out and does those initial assessments to really determine what's happening with the family. And then the family navigator will work with the family on an ongoing basis and is required to do monthly home visits. But we're finding that they're meeting with them, you know, more than that and really as needed. And then our job is to really connect them with whatever is needed. It could be speech therapy, occupational therapy, ABA, you know, counseling, tutoring, especially too with the storms recently and everything that's gone on with that. We have a lot of housing needs, we have a lot of food needs, we have a lot of just people are just behind on their bills. Life's very expensive right now. And then like Denise said, we really encourage our people to attend the monthly support groups as well. So do you want to talk about the?
So the benefits of caregiver support services is reducing parental stress. That is our #1 thing that we want to do, because we feel like if parents' stress is reduced, then they're less likely to abuse their children or have any other problems with their children. So if we pay their electricity bill or we pay their rent for the month, that takes stress off of them, and they can spend some time or spend some extra money on their children and do fun things with them instead of having to be worried about having, if their child doesn't have a bed, we help provide that. We do anything that we can. We provide diapers to families. We help them connect them with every resource that's available in Hillsborough County to help them with this. So we improve the formal and informal family supports. We increase protective factors against potential incidents of abuse, neglect, and we improve family functioning and well-being. And this is our staffing. Larry Cooper is our EV of Innovation. I am the director of the Hillsborough unit, and Crystal Moses also has Hillsborough Pasco, and Stephen Fauché has Pinellas. We're a pretty large team. We have, like I said, our clinical side on there. We have our clinical team lead. We have family navigators that go out into the homes. We have our QA person. We have our intake line. Kelly is our intake person. We can take intake with email or phone line, whichever. You could email me or whatever. We've got some brochures to leave today if anyone is interested. We'd love to, help the families of Hillsborough County. We have a program manager, a QA, support group assistant. We have the best support group person in the world. She sets us up with yoga. She sets us up with karaoke, and then also does all of these really nice workshops for parents on parenting skills. And so it's a really good one. Now, somebody here knows us very well. I just looked over and I'm like, oh, hi. She's heard us spell before. So thank you. So here's how to make a referral. Here are our caregiver support services. And like I said, if you need a brochure, we'll be glad to give it to you. And so if you take a minute to write that down, but we're very excited to be here for this program. It's just the best thing. For the parents that we've been working with and since August, all of them have just praised our services because, there's so many things that they couldn't do without us. During the holidays, we went and delivered toys and bikes and things to all these families so that they had something for their children to have at Christmas. So it's an all-encompassing program. It's not just respite. It's just not just wraparound services. We're the whole thing. We just do everything that we can for the family. And we have a flyer. And does anyone have any questions about our program?
Denise, I apologize. I just want to add, and I apologize if you did have it in the slides, but there's no income restrictions. So I think that's really important.
No income restriction, and it is free of charge. Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I do have a question. One of the things we do within the community is something called local review teams, interagency staffings that involve kids that are at risk of entering the system. And we have multiple agencies coming. I realize a lot of our kids are over the age of 13, but is this something that we could look at including you on any staffings of children that are 13 or younger to see if we could use you as a resource to help prevent kids from coming deeper into the system, as long as they're not involved already with the
If they're not already involved.
Okay.
And you may have some children that are, of course, over 14 in the family. But, so they get the benefit of the program, even though they're not technically our, target population that we're working with. So it's not like we don't work, because we work whole family. So it could be that. But yes, we try to do anything and everything. We don't want them in your room, okay? We want to, that's why we want to do everything we can to prevent any type of abuse or anything and work with the youth. So if we see something that we need to provide for the entire family, then we do it. Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions, pretty please. First, how are you all funded?
We are funded by the Children's Board.
Thank you. And then the second question, never mind. Thanks.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'm Jeff and Debbie Kane, Character GPS. Sounds like an amazing program. Was just wondering, do you establish a budget for a family once you've done an assessment of, how many resources you're planning to?
It's based on what the family needs. Yeah. So we use ASO funds from the Children's Board to fund the things that the family needs. So, we paid rent for people for 3-4 months before. We have paid electric bills. We paid rent and electric bills. So
there's no assessment of money on the front end. As it occurs, you then respond to those needs?
Well, it's like we have a budget.
Okay.
And so we go within that budget. But however, we have been told that if we need something more, then we can request it. So, I mean, it would really just depend on the need of the family. And, you know, we also have to look at resources that we can provide within the community before we can use ASO funds. So, you know, we look at everything. We look to see if there's a mission somewhere that can provide furniture, or if there's some, you know, some foundation or something that we can do. So our team is very well rehearsed on everything that we have community-wise for Hillsborough County, and we provide services.
So is it typical, like a 12-month, or you determine what the length of time of your services would be for that family?
3 to 6 months.
It's 3 to 6 months, but we do extend sometimes. There are some families. We had a case over in Pinellas when I've been working with a respite program for 10 years, but we had a case over when I first started over in Pinellas, and there was a grandmother. She was elderly and had cancer, and she got 4 of her grandchildren just kind of dumped in her lap. So we were in we were in her home almost a year, because she needed that extra help. So it's just based really on the needs of the family, case by case.
So with Children's Services, then what measures do you provide back to them to show the impact of the investment?
Right. Well, you know we have to. That's what I meant for my assessment yesterday. When we go in, we do assessments on all the families. That's Jennifer does assessments. Lacey does assessments for the children. Jennifer's team does assessments for the adults in the family. So we set up goals that we want to work on with that family. And we set up goals for the children. So it's not like we're just going in there and babysitting. We are going and working on goals with the children while we're there. They may be behind in math. They may be needing to get off their tablet. They may whatever it is that we work with that family. It may be a 2-year-old that needs extra help with potty training or whatever it is that family needs, then we work on that. And so the way we know how we impacted is we have the pre-assessment and the post-assessment when we leave. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Countywide?
It is countywide.
And what's your capacity?
160 children at this time, but I talked to them yesterday and I said, can I double that? And they said, well, we'll see. So, because I do believe that we are already at 90 now, and we've just got started in October. So, and we're getting referrals every day. And so we're making a huge impact on the county. And like I said, we do have programs in Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas counties, but we do have the capacity here to do that.
Currently, what's your primary referral source?
Primary what?
Your referral source?
I would say self-referral.
How are parents finding out about it? From schools or?
Yeah, schools. We were at schools yesterday.
Okay.
Just different, other community organizations. Lots of outreach events. We've been working with ELC, Early Steps, Head Start, so.
Healthy Start. Healthy Start's a big one.
Oh, gotcha.
Heather.
So are you trending more in the under 5 population then?
We are right now.
Okay,
but
thank you.
In Pinellas, it's the other way. It's trending with the older children. And with us, it seems like more of the younger children. We have 4 sets of twins in our program. So it's a lot with that too. So I thought it was going to be more of the older ones, but in Hillsborough, it is more of the younger.
And this is only for ages 0, right here, for 0 through 13, you said?
Yes.
And they cannot have a previous case with DCF?
It cannot have an open case.
Open case, so it could be a closed case.
It can be a closed case.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Director Pilgrim, I would ask that if you have, you could email me the brochure.
Yes.
And then I can distribute it to our CAB attendees and our public.
And I'll leave some up here as well.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, thank you so very much for having us. We appreciate it. We're welcoming all of your referrals. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. As we move forward, public comments, we have received no public comments on our comment cards for today. Our next meeting will take place in this exact location, 601 Kennedy Boulevard on the 26th floor. It will be on Friday, May 16th at 10 a.m. anything else further? Vice Chair?
I move to adjourn.
I second that. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all. What time?